Yo, what's up? What's up? Welcome to episode 16 of the Peon podcast. Today on the show, we got Chef Christie Peters, who is the chef owner of Primal Pasta and Pop Wine Bar in Saskatoon. These are some of my favorite episodes when I don't know anything about a person in the industry, and then I happen upon their profile, and I find these people who are super interesting, and I purposely don't look up a lot about them because I want to just have a genuine, spontaneous conversation, and it's more about just two people in the industry learning about each other and telling stories. That's the cool shit. That's exactly why I do this. It's my favorite, and that's what happened here. I just happened to find Chef Peters' profile, and I was like, I gotta talk to the chef. She's amazing. Those are my favorites when things just spontaneously happen, where within a week or two of finding somebody and contacting them, we're just talking, and it's awesome. It's the most natural thing in the world because there's no barrier. We're both in the industry. We've been in the industry for a long time, and it's like Bourdain said, man, we're in a cult of pain, and so the language barrier doesn't exist. You know, we both know what we've been through, and it's like being in a tribe. You know, you see somebody on the other side of the world that's in your tribe, and the communication is easy. It's great. I love these types of conversations. This episode would have come to you way sooner, but I had to take another break again because I got sick again. I had a terrible flu. Luckily, the flu only lasted for a couple days, but I lost my voice. Like literally the day before, or the day after I was going to talk to Chef Peters, I ended up losing my voice, and it took me like a week to recover from this flu. Just got my voice back, I think, the day before me and Chef Peters talked. So if you hear some inconsistency in my voice, hear some coughing that I didn't edit out, that's why. I did my best, but my voice is all over the map on this episode. Anyway, editing this episode, I realized that there were a couple things that I missed in terms of things that I'd like to talk to Chef Peters about. So about her experience with Food Network and food TV shows, and that world is so interesting to me. The whole production behind these food competition shows, it's so interesting, and she got the chance to be a chef on one of them, but she's also had so many other interesting stories that we kind of got sidetracked, or I did anyway, by her story, that I didn't end up asking her about those, but maybe I can get her on for a second episode and we can talk about that, and then more stories about the Hollows, because that's such an interesting restaurant, obviously an interesting time in her life. But the things we did talk about are amazing. One thing that we talked about, which kind of tied into something that happened this week, was like a Bon Appetit article about a chef's misconduct, and I don't want to comment on that at all. But what I found kind of funny was that a couple of the things that they claimed was misconduct, or that they were trying to cancel this woman for, were things that are pretty standard in the restaurant industry, namely what we talk about, which is that the pressures of owning restaurants, working in restaurants, coming up in restaurants is so hard that you tend to react just as hard in terms of how you deal with it. And what I mean by that is mainly is drug use, and also your sort of behavior. You know, you're kind of wild because you're so restricted in your day-to-day life. Everything about your life is so structured and routine heavy that when you're allowed to let loose a little bit, you just fucking go wild, you know? Sort of like a prison mentality. It's like, I'm out of fucking prison now, I'm gonna go fucking nuts. And the funny thing is that not only is that just standard, when I say that, I don't mean that I'm advocating for how these things exist in the restaurant industry, and I'm not excusing them. I'm just saying that that's what it is. You know, people in the industry are always going to drugs are just part of it. You know, I think the quote unquote pro chefs at Bon Appetit either haven't worked in restaurants or haven't experienced restaurants because they don't know that the majority of people in restaurants are coming in high and leaving drunk because they're just getting high in the morning and then coming to work and being very productive. And then you get a little shifty after work because you just got destroyed, you know, and you need something to calm down, something to relieve the stress. So, and also, there's two things. One is that this sort of behavior is what people are attracted to about the industry. People outside the industry are attracted to the messy, dysfunctional side of the industry. I mean, evidenced by this whole article. One, that is fucking newsworthy for some fucking reason. And then two, every fucking movie or story about a chef or a cook is always about the addicted cook or the dysfunctional cook. It's just what people seem to be fascinated with in our industry. And they don't ever showcase people who do that and do it, you know, it's just part of their life. It's just they're successful, but they also have this wilder side to them. I don't know. I mean, Munchies had an incredibly popular and famous show about this on YouTube, taking chefs out, getting them fucked up, and then bringing them back to their restaurant to cook for their staff. And the second part of that is that these sort of articles never consider the other side of it, which is that, sure, I can say, oh, I was fired without any notice. They just came in and fired me. But Bon Appetit's not asking them why they got fired or how shitty of a fucking worker they were or what they did to cause that sudden firing or if the firing was even sudden. There's no other side to that story, which is the only point that matters in that story. Owning a restaurant and managing people is so difficult, and you're always the fucking bad guy, you know? There's so much behind that story that never gets told because the people who run the restaurant or the business have to just keep going. They got to keep a good face and they got to just keep fucking trucking along. They got to hire more people and they don't get to tell their fucking story. The fucking loud ass employee is the one who gets to tell that story. I don't know. I don't want to. None of this is. Chef Peters does not advocate any of this stuff. This is literally just me talking out of my ass. Just because as I was editing, it reminded me of this episode. What we talked about kind of tied into this article, and it just made me think that I wanted to talk about it. Anyway, let's just get into the episode. As usual, you can go to peonmagazine.com/support if you'd like to donate or support or anything like that. And also just scroll to the bottom of this episode's description. There's a little donate link. You just press that and donate as much as you want. It does certainly help. And you can go to peonmagazine.com/store if you'd like to buy any merch. I got a couple new t-shirts planned that are going to be like little limited edition runs. And then, definitely check out Chef Christie Peters on Instagram. She is Crust in the Kitchen on Instagram. And then her two restaurants, Primal_Pasta and Pop_Wine Bar. And then also worth checking out is At the Hollow 306. And that is her restaurant that no longer exists. I'll let her tell the story, but what a wild place that was. It's worth going back through that Instagram and checking that place out because it was so unique. Anyway, let's get into the episode. Thank you for listening. Appreciate it. Sorry it took so long to get things set up. Yeah, literally the night before we were about to talk, I came down with a horrible flu. Just like sweated it out a little while, and then I just got my voice back like 1 or 2 days ago. So
crazy.
Thanks for being patient. I appreciate it.
Well, thanks for inviting me to do this. I love this kind of stuff. So I'm happy to
Oh,
be.
nice.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Have you done podcasts before?
I did one before. I don't remember what it was
Oh,
called.
nice.
It was just a local Saskatchewan one.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Do you remember how you got into the industry and what drew you to it, if anything
Yeah.
did at all?
Yeah. A couple different things. Like I was working as a hostess at Boston Pizza when I was 17, or sorry, 14. That was my first ever job. And I saw the restaurant
What
owner.
is
Oh,
what's
what is
Boston
Boston
pizza?
Pizza?
I never heard.
It's a pizza chain in like Canada, and it's like
Okay.
very generic pizza and pasta chain.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. So I saw the owner always at work, and he would just walk in and out and on his own time and like do whatever he wanted to do. All the nonstop pop he could drink, and all the beer, and all the food.
Okay.
And I was like, that just
Yeah.
seems like such an amazing job.
To
Um,
be a restaurant owner?
yeah, to be
Yeah.
a restaurant owner, that stuck with me. And then uh, I was also modeling in Toronto, and I was seeing a lot of Food Network, and I realized that I didn't have any practical skills at all, and I needed to
Yeah.
get practical skills. So I almost went into I wanted a trade, so I almost went into welding. And
Wow.
then I
Do you
decided,
remember what era of Food Network that was? Like
yeah,
who were
of
you
course,
watching
I
back
remember
then?
everything. Like it
Yeah.
was definitely New Classics with Rob Feeney. That this is all. It was Food
Okay.
Network Canada, so it was.
Oh, okay, so it's a little different from the
Yeah, but
US.
Jamie
Okay.
Oliver, like he had, it was like
Okay.
Jamie at
Yeah.
home when he was like cooking out of his garden and stuff like that. Like it
Oh,
was,
I love that show. That he had
yeah,
his own little garden spot, right? That
yeah,
show was sick. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
And he had
that
like
was
a
a great show.
little, yeah, his little outdoor cook grill and cooking
Yeah.
over fire. And like, yeah, it was just like, I
Yeah.
fell in love with all of, I would watch it day in and day out. And I, I realized I didn't know how to cook. And one of the most,
Mhm.
I thought the most important thing in life is to be able to cook well and feed your family well and
Yeah.
entertain and all of those things. And I really didn't know how to cook. So I thought that's the trade that I want to do. I want to do the trade that I have to feed myself 3 times a day. Why not do like the most important thing in life? And
That's a
so,
really and you decided that at 14? That's very
no, no, that sorry,
just
that
okay, I
was
was gonna
just
say.
at like 19. That was later
Oh,
on
okay.
in the modeling
Okay.
days when I realized, oh, I don't have a practical skill. So then I thought,
Did you come from a family that it had a lot of cooking and home cooking and things like that, or was it
no, like
no?
it was very much like mac and cheese out of a box and
Okay.
like
Yeah.
that kind of stuff. So I didn't really know. And when I was modeling in Toronto, that was the first time that I had lived on my own. So I had to cook for myself, and I realized I really didn't have any good skills.
Yeah.
And so the first show I said New Classics with Rob Feeney. He's like he was the first Canadian chef to win Iron Chef America against Morimoto
Oh,
in Battle
damn. All
Crab.
right.
Yeah, so
Oh, crap.
it was a
Okay.
big deal back then.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, it was. It definitely was.
yeah, so he was a big
Yeah.
deal, and I saw that his show was shot out of Vancouver. So I decided I would go find Rob Feeney and I would work under him because I always thought if you wanted
Yeah.
to do something like a trade, you go
Mhm.
find the person who's doing the trade and you work under them for free instead of going to school. So,
That's smart. That's very smart
yeah,
instead of culinary school, which is
yeah,
insanely expensive. Yeah.
totally. And I thought Rob Feeney, because I also wanted to have my own show someday. So I thought Rob Feeney is a chef. He has his own restaurant and his own show. So he's the
Yeah.
guy I got to go find. So I just went to Vancouver and I applied at his restaurant and I got a job. And yeah, it was a
Was it
big
like
learning experience.
was it like an unpaid, internship kinda job, or did you just get a job and start from the bottom there?
Well, funny enough, it turns out they were desperate for cooks even then. So, like,
Really?
yeah,
Wow, okay.
yeah. So
Damn.
the industry's always been desperate for cooks. Like, there's
Yeah,
always people
of
coming and
course.
going. So even though I didn't have any experience, they asked me. They invited me to do a stage and said it's a sink or
Mhm.
swim situation. They asked me if I had a knife. I said no. They said go buy a chef's knife. Come back on Friday. We'll give you a sink or swim kind of test and see if
Holy
you can do it.
shit. That's
Yeah,
crazy.
I've never been more nervous in my entire life. And then
Yeah, naturally, yeah.
I did. They asked me to brunoise a cucumber, and I said, "What's brunoise a cucumber?" And they were like, "Oh my god!" And but then they like showed
Yeah,
me, and I did it perfectly. It took me 2 hours, but I did it perfectly. So they said, "Okay, your eye for detail is there, but we can work on your speed. So we're going to give you the job."
that's
So I
amazing.
ended up
That's
working there. Yeah, and it all started there.
what type of food? I'm not familiar with, that
Um,
chef. What type of
well,
food was he
actually,
doing?
like the show, it was called New Classics with Rob Feeney. So it was
Hmm.
a Feeney's Bistro, and it was all classic food, but done with a twist, an elevated twist. So it's actually like was such an amazing educational experience because I got to learn classic French cooking
Hmm.
only with like really high end, beautiful ingredients. But it was all based in French cuisine, so it was very classic.
Okay.
The training I got, like elevated duck confit on like a radicchio salad with a warm hazelnut vinaigrette, and like a shepherd's pie but made with shredded duck confit and creamed corn and like truffle palm puree that's like absolutely perfect, and like
Damn.
French
Yeah.
onion soup and all of those
That
things, like
sounds like
learning
culinary school.
sauces.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was like really, really
Yeah.
perfect. So I
I'll
loved it.
look him up right now. Rob Feeney. How do you spell Rob Feeney?
Rob and
How
then
do you spell
Feenie.
Enie? Feel like
Yeah, it's funny.
no.
And
I guess maybe we didn't even get that show here. Dang.
yeah, it
Yeah. So
was
you loved that experience, huh? That was like
yeah,
you were 19 and you were like just shoved in like that.
yeah, it was awesome. And then years and years later, like this was probably 5 years ago, I was invited to be a judge on Food Network Canada on a show,
Oh, cool.
and I got to
Yeah.
sit next to Rob Feeney on the show as we were both judging together.
Did
So
you get to work under him? Was he actually involved in the restaurant at that point?
he was, yeah, yeah,
Oh,
and
cool.
his story is actually even kind of crazy. I don't know how much I should talk about him, but he lost his restaurant to investors. The investors slowly bought more
Damn.
shares than he had, and then they fought and they pushed him out. So my
Wow.
restaurants, I don't have any investors because of that. Watching that unfold, I vowed then and there that I would never have a single investor because I never wanted anyone to have control over my restaurants or my destiny. So that was also a big
Yeah.
lesson I learned there.
Did that happen behind his back? Like he was just slowly losing
Yeah.
control?
Well, from I was so young, and they didn't really tell me what was going like on, but from what I gathered,
Yeah.
the restaurants, as we all know, restaurants lose money. So it was losing
Yeah.
money, and so he was selling his shares slowly to the investors to dig him out of the debt because maybe
Damn.
he was spending. I don't know. Restaurants are tough. Maybe he wasn't spending the money properly. Maybe he was. It's just restaurants are horrible,
Yeah.
horrible money makers.
Yeah, for sure.
And eventually the investors owned more than him, and he was ripping, they were loudly fighting in the dining room and ripping things off the walls, like, and
Holy shit.
it was a big
Wow.
scene, and all the kitchen was rallying behind Feeney, and we just
Yeah.
loved him, and yeah, it was a big messy exodus. So
Damn. Wow.
mhm.
How long did that unfold?
um it was pretty quick. It was like about a 3 month drama thing that happened, and then yeah, I'm pretty good at like having an instinct when restaurants are gonna go under, and I usually exit before then. So I got another job with some of his other chefs, and yeah,
Gotten out of there?
I went to
Yeah.
the new hot restaurant in town. I was like, it's time for me to move on. So
Yeah.
also
How long did you stay at that restaurant?
I was there for 2 years, and I
Okay.
wanted to work the meat station, but the new chef, chef de cuisine, not Feeney, wouldn't allow me to work the meat station because he didn't like me for some reason.
Okay.
We all all my colleagues, like we were all like, it was like we were in the army together. We are all like very very best friends.
Yeah.
Actually, my husband now I met at Feeney's. He's the one who trained me how to brunoise a cucumber. So that's another
That's
story.
that's a wild story.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I'm still like best friends with like 3 or 4 people from that era of cooking, and
That's
they've
wild.
all grown up to like start their own restaurants and stuff around the world, which is really cool.
That's really awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, but I
Did
I
so
think
did you end up working your whole way up through that kitchen except for that meat station?
yeah, I did, and then the new chef came, and they think it's because I was a woman, to be honest, and I've never. That was the first time I ever encountered anything like that, like at all. Like
Mhm.
I never. I was cruising along in the kitchen. I had never thought about that kind of thing. He would just he just kept promoting people above
People ahead
me
of you?
that I had trained, and I was
Yeah.
like, this is
Oh,
it's
Jesus.
crazy.
Yeah.
So I left and went to another restaurant, and I ended up at the other restaurant they did whole animal butchery, and I ended up getting to work the meat station there. So I actually learned a better meat station at that place anyway. So it was
So it worked
good.
out, yeah. Was that Rob Feeney's restaurant as well?
No, that was JC Quay. He owns the best. It's called St. Lawrence, and it's at number one in Canada on the Canada's 100 best list right now.
Damn. Okay. Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm not
so
too
it's
familiar
all
with the Canada food scene, so I'll have to.
yeah, it's all Quebec guys. Like in Vancouver, it was all a lot of Quebec guys that were
Mhm.
with Rob Feeney. So as they branched out and started their own restaurants, I kind of followed the Quebec kind of culinary guys, and they're all amazing. Like I think they're the best cooks in Canada. They're just incredible.
Yeah.
They start training when they're like 14. Like they start in high school, they choose a
Jeez.
trade like right away.
Yeah.
So they all look way older than they are, and they're all like have way more life experience than they. It's amazing.
That's incredible. Do they like have to choose a trade, or do they just is that just how the school system works?
That's
They
like how
just
the school
choose.
system works. I think like you either choose
It's really.
academic or a trade. I think at a certain age, like a very young age,
Mhm.
is what I've heard from them. So
It's a smart way to do it, I think.
it really
But
they're a cut above. Like they're
yeah,
incredible.
yeah. So, what was the experience like at that restaurant? Did you feel like because I started cooking at about 23, and I feel
Mhm.
like that was just when I was able to sort of grasp those sort of the responsibility of working in a restaurant. Do you remember how you were feeling? I guess what was your personal experience with working in the restaurant at that age?
Yeah. Well, I had done a lot of stuff before. Like I said, I was modeling. I went to university, and when I got into the kitchen, and I had served like front of house and stuff, but when I
Oh,
got
okay,
into the
so you had
kitchen
some experience.
and got into like what I'm calling now line cook life, it was like
Mhm.
a light bulb went on. Like it was perfect for me at the time.
Oh, like you just fit into it so well.
I loved the
Yeah,
challenge. I'm really tough apparently, so I loved the long hours, and I you know what? I realize now that I'm a bit of a workaholic, and I was avoiding a lot of issues in my family. And
yeah,
so
yeah.
I had that was the
Kind of the same
perfect
way.
excuse to say no to everything and just no, you know what? I'm working 12 hours. I'm working 6 days this week. I can't come home for Christmas. I'm good. Like I'm just working. I'm working. I'm trying to build
Yeah.
my career. And it flew by and I loved every minute of it and my body actually
Mhm.
loved it. Like I never was as fit as I was when I was line cooking, and I
Yeah.
I was thriving. Like I just loved it. And that's the thing I'm trying to figure out today is it a certain type of person and do those people still exist? Was it because I was young? Like basically at my restaurant now I've started to line cook again after like 10 years. Like it's pretty crazy. I haven't really line cooked in a long time.
That's wild. Yeah, you said last night you were on the line at your
Yeah.
restaurant. That's wild.
And
Is that just because of the circumstances, like you're not able to find people, or do you
yeah,
just wanna dive back in? Yeah,
no,
you just don't find
it's
people?
because we can't find people, and my poor chef de cuisine is working with a bunch of kids that are not trained, and he hasn't seen a trained cook in so many years. And I said,
Wow.
I'm a trained cook. Why don't I come work the tough station and you can take a breather and see what it's like to actually work with like a trained line cook again. And so you can get your bearings. And it turns out I still love it. Like the thrill, like holy
Yeah.
shit, I love it. Like
It's
I
great
went
when, like, everything's firing on all cylinders and everything's going so smoothly and you get, like, a nice rhythm going. It's fantastic. Yeah.
yeah,
There's
like
nothing else like it.
it's
Yeah.
incredible. Like I forgot that
Mhm.
feeling and I kind of thought I was over it and I thought it was like a young person's thing, and then I was doing my list. I was racing against time to get my list done before service, and then I like
Yeah.
got the nervous before service, and then did the service, nailed it, and then was like on
Yeah.
such a high after the cleanup and all the like loud music that I like went out for a beer with the guys, and then I like couldn't sleep till like 3 in the morning, and then I woke up and then I'm like, oh shit, I got to get back to my line cook job because I had to work 2 days in a row. So
Yeah.
I felt like it was just like old times. But then the only problem is that I own two businesses and I own the buildings as well, and I'm doing building
Damn.
management, accounting. We're switching
So you're
banks
d
right now.
line cook at the same time that you're doing all this other stuff in the background?
Yeah, and like running
Damn.
the businesses and all that.
Wow.
So, but the cool thing is when I was doing my list in line cooking, I had to just be present in the present moment because I if I was
Mhm.
thinking about the emails that I had to do, I can't do them. Like I was gonna not be ready for service if I did the emails. There's no stopping.
Yeah.
So I just put
Yeah.
that aside out of my brain, and it's basically like taking 2 days off from my normal everyday grind and just being present in the moment and doing the line cooking.
Yeah.
But then honestly, it took me like today's Friday, and I'm not line cooking today, but I just woke up. Like it takes me a while to recover after 2 days of line cooking, and I'm like surprised I was able to do it for 20 years. Like that's crazy that I did
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, it is wild,
It's
but
a really, really hard job. Like it takes a
yeah,
special person who like you have no
physically,
life.
yeah. Yeah, yeah, it kinda consumes your life. It
Mhm.
does. It does. I mean, I've worked at the most recent restaurant I left. I used to work 12-hour days, and that really consumes all of your life. Yeah, I known owners who've come in to do dishes, and I feel bad for them. But then when you talk to them, they're like, "No, this is great. I get a time off from the craziness and all the heavy weight, and all I have to do
Yeah,
is just worry about washing dishes right now. This is
yeah.
great."
Dish pit
So,
hashtag dream job is what we say. We're like, "Like, a
yeah,
dish pit, that's
it
our
is.
dream job." It's like, so there's no worries in the pit, you know?
No, yeah, that's great. Well, let's go back. So you ended up going to the whole animal butchery. Was
Mhm.
that, as the name says, like a butchery restaurant, or
No.
butchery, or was it a restaurant as well?
No, it was a restaurant, and it was super amazing and magical and,
Mm,
ahead of its time or of the times especially. It was very much like, they did whole animal butchery. They got all of their it was almost like a little bit vegetable forward as well. They had lots of vegetarian
mhm.
menu items, but they were really beautiful. They were only using produce that was, like, grown within BC kinda thing.
Okay.
It
This
was
was in Vancouver as well?
yeah, it was
Okay.
like the restaurant to be at. Like this chef,
That's amazing.
and he's still like the best chef. Like his restaurant's number one now. That whatever, but he like I just remember the weird like barefoot, dirty feet farmer guys coming in with like the best heirloom tomatoes that like stuff I've never seen before in my entire life. Like variations that I
Yeah.
still to this day I'm trying to search out. Like I was on Garde like making the tomato salads, and every time some tomato seeds would spill onto my cutting board, I would scrape them into a 250 and I would take them and save them because I was so enamored by these gorgeous tomatoes.
Were you trying to
Um,
cultivate them? Would, like, put them in
I
your garden?
did,
Is that what you're trying to?
yeah.
Yeah. Did it work?
Yeah, I brought them
Did you
back to Saskatoon and I grew them, and I
That's
brought
awesome.
special varieties to like Saskatchewan because Saskatchewan back then was very much orange carrots, red tomatoes, and like
The typical, like, white onions, yeah,
There
boring
was no
shit, yeah.
heirloom varieties of vegetables, so I'm
Yeah.
happy to that's a big thing. So I collected a lot of seeds when I was there, and that place was just the food was just so clean, beautiful. It was very cartoon-like is the way I describe it, and that's
What do
still
you
my
mean?
that's still my style to this day is like big, bold colors, like, and, like,
Oh, I
almost
see what you
looks
mean,
like
like,
a cartoon, like, it's just so
yeah,
clean and pristine that and, like, big and bold and
like
not
sharp
so
color contrasts, that kind
yeah,
of thing?
and not so fine and
Mhm.
precious and too many elements and a lot going on, like, it's just, like, big, bold colors on the plate and shapes on the
Mm.
plate, and I really liked it and thought it was beautiful.
That's awesome. So,
Yeah.
is that restaurant still around?
No, it also
And
went
he's
under. Um,
damn.
every almost every restaurant I've worked at has gone under, but it's been sad. But I
Yeah,
saw it
that's
coming as
kind of the
well.
way
I
of
remember,
restaurants, but
yeah, I remember we had this fancy Aquapana bubbly water in these for the
mhm,
guests, and chef used to drink those big bottles of the fancy bubbly water. And I remember
mhm.
seeing him one day drink out of a liter, starting to drink out of a liter, and I was like, "This is not
Like, oh.
good." Like, so then
Those
I was
small
like,
little signs, yeah.
yeah, I was just like, "This is something's off," and so I
Mhm.
ended up what did I even do after that? I went somewhere. I think I started traveling.
Did you get a chance to learn some of the whole animal butchery and
Yeah,
move up in that spot as well? How long did you
yeah.
stay there?
2 years again. Yeah,
2 years? Yeah.
and that place was actually so hot. It had all the best cooks from Vancouver. All of the best cooks were there, and I wanted to work there so badly, but so I worked there for free for a week
Mhm.
until they would take me, and they were like, she's not going to leave, like she's just going to keep coming back and again. So
Just persistence.
they gave me a job, and it turned out that I ended up staying and doing all the stations and everything. Yeah, whole pigs, whole lambs. It was really fun. they were worried I couldn't lift the pig onto the table by myself. But I,
Hmm.
out of sheer will and spite, did was able to do that. So
Yeah.
yeah.
I was gonna say, like, working with some of the best chefs in town, did you feel like you had to rise above, or did you feel like some sort of inadequacy? I'm a type of person who comes into a kitchen, I feel instantly inadequate, and then I try to work myself. Like, I'm my worst critic, so I have to outwork my expectations. How did you feel in that environment?
I felt like I was in heaven because I was the worst one, and everyone, they were all like my big brothers. Like it was like being surrounded by like a bunch of big brothers who
Hmm.
were teaching me and guiding me, but also like razzing me and making fun. Like that, they're actually the reason I got my nickname Crust. My like Instagram handle
Crust?
is Crust in the Kitchen,
Yeah.
because my name is Christie, so they used to all call me Crusty as like, oh, like razz me, and then but then
Yeah.
they'd get in the shit and they'd need something from me, and they'd have like sheer panic in their eyes, and they'd be like, Crust, can you run and get some parsley and chiffonade very fast? And they started calling me Crust as like
Yeah.
it almost that was just my kitchen nickname. So I
Yeah.
always loved that
And
I
it
got a
stuck.
kitchen nickname. Yeah.
Yeah. That's awesome. So were you the only woman in the kitchen at that place?
No, they had one other French pastry
Okay.
chef. Yeah, all the other women were on pastry. I tried to avoid pastry as much as possible. But
Yeah, I was gonna say, did some people try to pigeonhole you into pastry just by virtue of being a woman? Yeah.
yeah, even they made me, when I wanted to go on the meat station, they made me job share. I only got to go on the meat station 2 days a week at first, and I had to do the other 3 days a week on pastry. Which is, I'm grateful because to
Mhm.
be a well-rounded chef, like I got to
Oh,
learn all the classic pastries. I can do I can do anything. I can do the lemon curd, the chocolate mousse, like all the classics, the toulouse. Like
yeah.
I'm glad I know that. I can make puff pastry. I can do all that stuff. So that's great. But then I slowly worked over full time onto the meat station, which was nice.
Yeah. Where'd you end up after that? Do you leave before it went down?
Yeah,
Or
as
did
soon as I
you
saw a chef drinking out of a liter, I was like, uh oh.
you're like, I'm out.
So yeah,
You said you started traveling.
I went to Europe, to
Did you
Amsterdam.
did you go with cooking in mind, or were you just traveling?
No, I had cooking in mind. My best friend at the time, who's now my husband, was traveling in Europe, and he had a family in Amsterdam and a place to stay. And he said I should come out and visit him, but I said I'll only go there if I have a stage set up for a month. So
Mhm.
I called around and got a stage at a restaurant that was in an old Dutch greenhouse, like a vintage, beautiful. It was a huge structure entirely made of glass, where they
Oh,
grew
wow.
they grew a ton of vegetables inside in the greenhouse, and then they had
Mhm.
the the yard that had all the gardens that they were growing with like raspberries and all sorts of different stuff,
Wow.
and then they also had a farm that grew vegetables for them, and they were very much a vegetable centric restaurant, and like the cooks would go pick the vegetables and like bring them back covered in dirt, and we'd scrub them and make vegetable dishes. It was really cool. So I did that for a month while I was there.
What's that place called?
Uh, it's confusing. It's called Ducasse. It's not Ducasse. It's like,
Not Ducasse, like,
yeah.
yeah,
Every
Alain
time I ever
Ducasse.
say Ducasse, they're like, "Oh, you worked for Alan Ducasse?" I'm like, "No." But it's like Dekas, which means the glass, I believe, in Dutch.
I know about this restaurant. Yeah, I
Yeah.
don't remember exactly how, but I found that restaurant, about a year or so ago. That's wild.
Mhm. So that was a cool that experience, like, helped shape me, uh, like, that I always thought if I ever had my own restaurant, I want, like, to have the vegetables come in not in plastic bags and cardboard boxes, but in, like, Rubbermaid bins straight from the farms, and, like, I wanna, like, scrub the dirt off,
Yeah.
and that was, like, and grow as much as possible and be very vegetable centric, so that was, like, a big piece in my puzzle as well.
Yeah. What was it like working in that kitchen? Did they speak English, or were you
They spoke English, but they did speak Dutch. So they had pretty strong accents, and but it was good. Like I could do it. I met a lot of
Mhm.
everyone was really nice. It was actually really great. Like I love Europe.
Yeah,
Europe's just the best. Everything in Europe
it
is
is.
amazing.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. So it was like pretty great. It was awesome. like did a lot of drugs, traveled, like got to see a lot of stuff, like
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
Amsterdam,
that's,
baby.
yeah. Answer. Yeah.
Like I
What
was
was
like a
the,
Christie line cook. Like I was like hardcore line cook life. Like,
so you're partying as hard as you worked and shit
oh
like
hell
that?
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like
Yeah.
we were like doing acid and going to like the theme parks there, like on our days off, and like
Yeah.
stealing rowboats and like trying to just running around causing havoc. Like it was just crazy. But
That's amazing.
yeah, we used to
That's
go
amazing.
like as as crazy as we could, you know, like cooks are pirates. Like we were very much like the Anthony Bourdain type mentality. Like
Yeah.
after reading that Kitchen Confidential got us all, and yeah.
Yeah.
And Kyle, my partner, he's a wild man, and I'm actually more of a good girl, so I like live vicariously through his wild man actions, and
You're just along for the ride. Yeah.
yeah, but I go
Yeah.
crazy when I get the chance. So yeah, those were crazy
It's
times.
I think that's what like cooking is. I've thought about it a lot talking to this many like cooks and people in the industry, and like I feel like we work so fucking hard that of course when we get off we just go absolutely insane because the
Yeah,
rest of the time is so tight and focused
yeah,
and there's a lot of pressure and things. So when you're off work you just go absolutely crazy.
yeah,
Sometimes it for the worse, but
yeah.
I mean that's just what we do,
But
you know.
sometimes you got some crazy stories, and like life is short.
Yeah, of course.
And then also like
Yeah,
cooks and chefs, I realized we have like nothing to lose really. Like we can get
that's
like
true.
a
You can
DUI
go to
and
get another job.
we're
Yeah.
not gonna get disbarred. We're not gonna like lose our like I'm not
No.
trying to say I'm like promoting drinking and driving at all, but I was just
No,
as an
no.
example, like my doctor and lawyer friends, like they can't do a crime or they could lose their licenses and get disbarred,
Oh
but
yeah.
I can like get arrested for like naked drunkenness in public and it's just better for my rep, you know? Like
No, it'll just be a story to tell at work.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
There's people talk about using drugs at work. They talk about like, "Oh, yeah, I was tripping this weekend. I did this, I did that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got a DOI." And it's just all part of it's work. Oh, yeah, that's a story. You don't get fired. There's no penalty, nothing. It's just part of the work environment, which
No,
is wild.
and society champions you. They're like, "Oh, the
They
crazy
do.
chef."
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's true. Yeah. Not only do the people in the kitchen talk about it and they love the stories, but then people out of the kitchen, they're like, "Wow, there's crazy chefs in there. They're doing
The
wild stuff."
people are jealous, I
Yeah.
think, a little bit. Like, it's good.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you have an open kitchen?
No,
Because I find that like open kit, you never had the chance to work in one.
I've worked in an open kitchen in Vancouver,
Okay.
but I've never owned an open kitchen.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say like people are like watching you like it's a TV show, but they get to
Oh,
talk to you. They be like, "How crazy is your life?" And like, "How many hours you work?" They all ask all these weird questions that that no one else asks,
yeah,
and it's
totally.
strange. It's like they're watching Top Chef or something.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's amazing.
it's bizarre. Yeah. Was your partner also cooking
Yeah.
in Amsterdam too? Where was he
No, he
working?
didn't cook in Amsterdam. He
Oh, he didn't.
just
Okay.
kind of was like traveling around. Um,
Okay.
yeah.
Did you go to another spot after that to
Uh,
stage,
not
or was
in
that the
Europe.
place you staged in Europe?
Not in Europe at that time. I just traveled around. Um, I've done a lot of traveling in Europe. Actually, I've been a lot of places, but I didn't work. That was the only place I worked. Aside from when I went to Noma recently.
Did you just eat at Noma, or did
No,
you?
I was staging in the fermentation lab with Zilber for like 3.5 months.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah,
That's amazing.
he invited me to come, and I was like, okay, like this is
What?
once in a lifetime
How
experience.
did you land that?
Because him and I are old line cook buddies from Vancouver.
No way. Yeah,
Yeah,
he is from Vancouver, isn't he?
well,
Wow,
he's
that's
from
incredible.
Toronto, but
How
he
did?
cooked in Vancouver forever.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, back.
Yeah. How did you guys meet?
Um, well, back in my line cook days in Vancouver, I would get off work a little bit like half
Mhm.
cut after my beers with the guys, and then I would write
Yeah.
my Crust in the Kitchen blog, and it would be like it was kind of like a Dear
Oh,
Diary
cool.
type thing of like today this happened to me at work, like today I had to fry some capers and I didn't put them in the fine mesh strainer and I just dumped them in the deep fryer and then I had to drain the whole fryer and it's just like my little like Dear Diary stories of line cook stories,
Yeah,
and
that's
photos of
awesome.
yeah, and so he had also had his like photo blog, and so we followed each other and he really liked my stuff and encouraged me, which was really cute.
Mhm.
Um, and then yeah, we just kind of met up and had some drinks from time to time, knew like just connections to the industry, and then
Yeah.
I was staging in Copenhagen at this restaurant that's actually beside Noma. It was like this weird exchange thing that this I did with this lady and my friend from Edmonton who's also a chef. It was like for female chefs to like stage around. So
Uh-huh.
when I was in Copenhagen, I called up Zilber and was like, "Hey, can I get a tour of Noma?" And he was like, "Yeah, like absolutely." So he gave me a tour, and I was just like, "This place is so awesome." And he was like, "Why don't you come be my next intern?" I was like, "That's like a once in a lifetime opportunity. Absolutely."
Yeah,
So,
for sure.
yeah, so that's
What time period was this?
just
What
before the
year?
pandemic. I was like the last.
Oh, okay.
That's why I feel so freaking lucky. Like I got
Yeah,
home
right?
at like it was like two yeah I was the last batch of interns before the pandemic, so there was no sign of the pandemic when I was there. I got home at
Mhm.
Christmas, and then then the pandemic happened after that, so I got to like be away in Europe for 3.5 months before that, so I felt like pretty
That's
stoked
amazing.
about that.
Yeah. Yeah. Were they I can't remember when the book came out, but were they working on the book at that time? Or had it
The
already
book was
come out?
already out, and the book was
Okay.
already out, and they were actually doing research on a second book at that time. And then
Okay.
that Noma 2.0 book came out, but Zilber left
Yeah.
after I was the
Yeah.
last intern with Zilber, which was really nice.
What was that experience like? Like, what was the day-to-day of that place?
Oh, it
Because
was
it seems like
crazy.
a dreamland. It's like you just come in and kind of just explore.
Yeah, well, it
Yeah.
was like that. Like at the lab, I actually I felt like I wasn't like smart enough to be in the lab. Kind of like I don't know.
Yeah.
I was smart enough to be in the lab though. Like I
Yeah.
had a lot of breakthroughs there. I had the most I had like quite a few successful projects that Rene Redzepi was really excited about. He actually Instagrammed one of my projects,
Mhm.
that's a huge honor. Like David Zilber was like, "Holy shit! Like you've only been here for 2 weeks, and like Rene is like Instagramming your shit. That's fucked up."
What was it?
It was uh, there's this amazing forager that brings them all sorts of different forest mushrooms, and there's this
Mhm.
mushroom called beef tongue mushroom, and it looks
Okay.
exactly like a beef tongue. Um,
Like that big?
it's
Like,
like
huge?
yeah, like
Okay.
it's like a bit smaller the one I had, but it looks like a beef tongue, like exactly
Uh-huh.
like a beef tongue. And uh, I guess they had had that mushroom come in before, and Renee didn't really like it. Also, he doesn't like garlic or cloves because that's too much like traditional Danish cooking, and he's trying to get away from that.
Okay.
But
Yeah, yeah.
like Christmas spice flavors and stuff. But
Mhm.
he said that like years ago, and everyone just kind of like clung on to that. But I just
Yeah.
I say some crazy shit as a chef, like that late like years later, I'm like, oh no, I'm fine with that now. Like it's fine. So
Yeah, the taste involves, yeah.
yeah. Anyway, no one wanted to do anything with this mushroom, so I said I'll take it because I've got corned beef tongue on my menu in Saskatoon right now. So I'll take it. I'll pretend it's a beef tongue. I'll make a like a corned beef brine with clove and garlic as I do at home. And
Mhm.
everyone's like, "Oh, he's gonna hate it if it has clove and garlic in it, whatever." And then I made the brine. I cut the piece of the mushroom, which is actually like red on the inside, and it shreds apart like meat when you cook it. So I
What?
dipped it in the brine and ate it, and it tasted like pastrami. Like it was like very
That's wild.
yeah. So I fed it to Zilber. He's
That's
like, "Well,
cool.
it's really good, but like it's what's the Noma? You know, like why is it special? Like it doesn't have any like forest flavors or whatever." And then Renee happened to walk by, and Zilber dipped it in the brine and gave it to him, and his eyes lit up. He grabbed my entire cutting board with the mushroom and the brine and everything. My knife is still on the cutting board. Whiz
Yeah,
Took it away to the test kitchen and did an Instagram about it. So yeah, I think it should still be on his. I don't know if it's on his feed or on his story, but it's Zilber and him talking about this beef tongue mushroom tasting like pastrami, and yeah,
that's incredible.
it was
Did it end
really
up on something on the menu?
no, I don't. Oh, they were doing. It was forest and game menu, and we were doing research for the seafood menu. So they said they would possibly revisit it for the veg menu, but I'm not sure if that ever happened. But it got logged into
Okay.
their Evernote. Evernote is how they keep track of their recipes. I don't know if you've
Oh,
heard of
wow.
Evernote, but
I
um,
have, but I've never used it, yeah.
yeah, it's really
That's
cool.
cool.
The way that they keep track of their recipes is
Huh.
because I had a breakthrough that that he liked, it needed to go on record. So they let me go into their Evernote system, and I wrote my recipe in grams, and then I wrote exactly the method I did as a story. And that's how they
Oh, that's
do,
interesting.
yeah, and that's
Wow.
how they do all of their recipes. So I do that at my restaurants now, and with Evernote, and I think it's like the best way to do it.
Huh. I'll have to look
Mhm.
at Evernote. That's very interesting because
Yeah,
I'm starting to like build recipes and it's the notebook method is very difficult.
yeah. Well,
Having a notebook just full of shit that you gotta fucking cycle through, you know?
yeah, I still
Yeah.
have every single chef notebook I've ever had.
That's awesome.
Yeah, they're,
Yeah.
like, right in my living room right now, and I still reference them, but I'm trying to enter them all into Evernote now so I can easily find
That's cool.
things. Yeah, and so the only other place I cooked was in San Francisco. I staged at Quay restaurant with Daniel Patterson.
Holy wait, before that's insane. But before that, I gotta ask, like, what is the we referenced like Noma projects. Like, how does that project system work? Like, do you come into work and then they just assign certain vegetables to you and then you work on it, or what's the I guess the procedure there? Because
Yeah.
it's very unique.
Well, as soon as I got there, they had a meeting. Like Zilber leads the meeting, and they have glass doors on the lab, and he writes with a paint marker on it, and it's called
Mhm.
ideation. And they already had
Okay.
like a bunch of ideation projects that they had thought that they want to do written down, and then they asked me and the other intern and the other lab two guys in the lab. They said, "Okay, what else do we want to do?" But I had just gotten there and I had no context as to what was going on really. So I Zilber was like, "Crust," and he calls me Crust from back in the day too.
He
It's
calls
funny.
you calls you
Yeah,
crust too.
he's
That's
like,
funny.
"What Crust? What's your ideas that you want to like experiment with?" And I was just like, "I don't really like know what you guys have already done, or like you guys have probably already done everything under the sun. Like I don't want to say something
Yeah.
and then you've already done it, or like I don't really know what I want to do." And he was like, "Oh, slow burn, I get it. So like we'll just like let you chill." So then when it came time to choose like a project, he's like, "Just choose one of the ones that's already up there."
What are
Um,
those projects involved? Is it just like is it an idea for a component, or
yeah,
is
an
it
idea
just
for a
a
component.
vegetable you wanna Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. Like so, I chose oyster bushi because I like oysters because I just like oysters. So I was like, I'll do oyster bushi because we serve oysters at our restaurant in Saskatchewan, which is real weird, but we fly them in fresh once a week, pick them up at the
Mhm.
airport. So I
That's
wanted
awesome.
to learn some
Yeah.
more stuff to do with oysters. So we made katsubushi out of oysters.
That's
And
awesome.
yeah, so my job was to like sit outside in the courtyard with like the smoker, like the smoke chips, and like smoke all the oysters perfectly evenly smoked, and then dry them, and then spray them with the like katsubushi spores, and like put them in the chambers and make katsubushi out of an oyster. So yeah, it was kind of
That
cool.
sounds awesome. That sounds like a great way to spend a day.
Yeah, and
That's that's awesome.
it turned
That's
out,
cool.
so it was a good project.
Yeah. Yeah.
We also made Worcestershire sauce.
Oh, did you?
We had a
Yeah.
Yeah, we had a contest in the lab. Zilber said, "Who can make the best Worcestershire sauce?" And I did win, which was very nice.
That's
But
awesome.
also because I put clove in it, I went in like
That's amazing.
yeah, like I went into the dry storage and smelled all the spices, and as soon as I smelled the clove, I was like, "That's what Worcestershire smells like." Like I wanted it to be
Yeah.
like identifiable as Worcestershire, not like some weird
Um,
thing. But yeah,
yeah.
they helped me
That's
make it
amazing.
very Noma-y. Like there was like fermented gooseberry juice in it near at the end, and like
Oh, yeah.
the sonicator, we sonicated in some cedar chips, and it was crazy.
That's crazy. Did you have any experience with any of that, like fermentation or any of the techniques they were using at that point before you went?
uh Only like lacto fermentation. Like I
Okay.
make the best sauerkraut around, I tell you. I'm really good at fermenting. Like lacto fermentation is my thing. um so yeah, but I actually didn't like using all of the science equipment, like the
Uh-huh.
rotovap thing and like the sonicator thing and like the centrifuge thing or whatever. Like I was terrified to use all that scientific equipment. I was so scared I was gonna break it, and like I knew I wasn't gonna ever use it again in my own restaurant, so it was kind of like
Yeah.
moot point, but it was still like cool
That
to learn.
yeah. So you were just thrown in. They don't like teach you in any way. You were just like
No,
how do they guide you in a sense of like how to go down these like avenues of different types of fermentation?
um It's pretty free. Like we were able to choose our own adventure like every day. Like aside from there was menu prep that we needed to do. But when I was there, the prep
Okay.
was really light in the lab, which was good. Like I just missed the one where they had to make all like the mold sheets and all that shit, and that was like a full-time job. So it was a lot of
Damn. Okay.
creative time in there with me, which was good.
That's wild. That is a once in a lifetime chance. Do you use any of that stuff now in your own restaurants?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Like
Yeah.
I make miso, I grow koji, and I want to get more into like exploring making like I'm really trying to make like lots of Saskatchewan products, so I want to like do the Saskatchewan
Mhm.
miso thing like really hard, but I just haven't had time. Still catching up from going to Noma, coming back, closing one of my restaurants because it got torn down, not because it went out of
Oh my
business.
God.
The whole thing got like
Yeah.
torn down, and then COVID thing, and then
Yeah.
I opened a new restaurant, and then it's been like a really big
Just
whirlwind. So I'm like still waiting to like really unpack what I learned at that Noma time. So
wow. Okay.
mhm.
You said you went to Quay. Did
Yeah,
you
yeah,
was that before? This is still like on your
that
journey
was
up
when I
to
was yeah
being
still
kitchens?
yeah I was
Okay.
young.
What drew you to that restaurant?
Well, like I said, I was writing that little blog, and
Mhm.
I noticed when I was researching San Francisco that Daniel Patterson had a ton of writing, and so I was like, he's a chef who also writes. I want to go
Yeah.
learn about that, like because he wrote for like New York Times and stuff, and
I know.
um,
I have all the Lucky Peaches here. I used to write tons of articles for Lucky Peach.
yeah, I
He's
have
a
all the
great
Lucky
writer.
Peaches too. I know, I
Yeah.
love that,
Yeah.
and that was just crazy to see that caliber of dining, and that was also another piece in the puzzle for me because, like, he was doing like super fine dining coursed menus that were made of nothing. Like the food cost was like very good. Like it was like blowing my mind. Like he's like, yeah, I went to this park in San Francisco and I foraged these like red berries that no one even knows what they are. I can't even remember what they're called. And he's like,
Yeah.
and then I make a soda out of them, and that's like the first course is like a bubbly water out of these like foraged berries from the park. So that's like you're
That's pretty
basically
cool.
it's basically free. And then like the
Yeah.
next course was like some sort of like pine and mandarin like ice or something. So I was like, that's
Mhm.
another course made of water. And then I don't know, it was just like the way he manipulated the ingredients and how fresh and light and how he could take a small amount of foraged ingredients and stretch it to like serve on the tasting menu.
Mm.
And the
That's
way he could
wild.
stretch ingredients, I admired, and still it was all groundbreaking stuff, and so he could charge a
Yeah.
ton for it. So
Yeah.
as a business mind, that was really cool.
Was that at the time that he was like hot shit, like
Yeah,
the big name? Oh
yeah,
wow, that's
he
awesome.
was big time. There was like celebrities in there, and like yeah. And so when I was working, Jeremy Fox came in for dinner, and
Okay,
he
cool.
was wearing like this like full plaid suit, and he just looked so cool. Like I was like, whoa, like who is this guy? And he came right into the kitchen, and he was just like, hey
Mm.
cooks, hey chefs, how's it going? And like he was just so cool. And I was like, who was that? And
Yeah.
they're like, that's Jeremy Fox. He's like the chef in Napa at Ubuntu, and it's like a vegetable restaurant. And I was like, whoa,
Mhm.
that's so cool. So then after my stage at Quay, I went to find. I just emailed Jeremy Fox, and he like responded to me like personally and was like, yeah, come stage. So I like spent some time there, and that was during a
That's
crazy
amazing.
time, and it was just crazy there at that time.
What do you mean? Like in terms of like
Um,
just how much was going on
they were
in
trying
such like
to
a small amount
yeah,
of space?
yeah. Well, they were like also short staffed at the
Oh,
time.
okay.
I think Jeremy Fox was going through a divorce at that time, and his phone was smashed, and he was like having a hard time, but also so kind and so nice at the same time, and just like um, it just you could feel the chaos in the restaurant, like you could feel the
Yeah.
palpable emotion. There was like emotion there,
Yeah.
and but I learned some really cool stuff there. It was like a really cool experience, and I got to go to like the farm where they grow everything and have like the chickens running around, and like it was just and I toured the French Laundry gardens. French Laundry was closed at the time, but
Oh,
I like
that's
Kyle and
cool.
I like creeped on their gardens. We were like, it was all abandoned. Like there was no one there because it was closed for the season or something. And but we were just like peeking in all their greenhouses and like walking all over like these windows, and yeah,
That
it was
sounds
cool.
awesome. Yeah. How long did you stay at Quay?
Only a month. Yeah,
Oh, so that was just a stage.
yeah, just a
Did
stage.
you Did you get to make the beet flowers, the famous beet flowers?
Hmm.
Did you?
Yeah, yeah, that was on my station. Yeah, I had like this.
Was it true that I remember on Bourdain on one of No Reservations or something like that? He said that he had like he's like, yeah, there's like 6 cooks down there, just like all making flowers, beet flowers. Was that true? That
Yeah,
everybody's just all hands on deck for these beet flowers?
yeah, there was like 3 people. Yeah,
Oh.
like, but their line was set up in a really crazy way. It was
Okay.
like a tiered line. Like, it was like a white room where there was like cooking equipment at the very back of the room, and then there was like a white bench, so they would cook and then like plate there, and then it was like, and then people would stand in front of it, and there was another like white like plating table, and then people would stand, and there was like another white plating table,
Okay. So
like.
it was like plating server, like that kind of
Well, no, it
that
was
like
like
that.
cooks, like it was like a pass with cooks, and then another pass with cooks, and then another pass at the front, and like
Okay.
different courses came off different stations, but it was all like in a line.
Oh,
Like
that's
there was
interesting.
people standing behind me and people in front of
Oh,
me, and everyone had their own like little job, and you'd like pass the dish down and like put like two with tweezers, like two lime zests on the like two strings of lime zest, but not too long of strings, not too short of strings, like on the like crab
wow.
whatever course soup it was. It was crazy.
That's
Um,
insane. Yeah.
yeah, and then every 15 minutes you had to do a line sweep, and it was like sweeping nothing. It was so weird because there was nothing ever on the ground. But I was the stage, so I had
Yeah.
to like line sweep the nothing every 15 minutes.
Yeah, I've deep cleaned a lot of clean
Yeah,
shit.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
I've
Yeah,
done that. You're like, why am I deep cleaning this? There's nothing wrong with this.
yeah, really funny.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, so what drew you to that place? You said he was following your blog, but
No, no, he wasn't following my blog.
oh,
I
okay.
had a blog, and then I googled like chefs in San Francisco, and all his writing for the New York Times and stuff popped
Oh,
up.
okay. That's right.
So I decided I wanted to work under a chef that was also doing writing, and he was
Mhm.
very flattered when he asked me, he came up to me and was like, "Why did you decide to stage here?" And I said, "Because of your writing." And he was like, "Oh, you know about my writing? Like, young little cook, you know that I'm a writer?" Like, so that was really cool.
Yeah. Did you get to gain some insight into that?
No,
Uh,
no, no, not really.
no?
No,
Okay.
just washing, cooking, cleaning, the normal stuff. But
You just wanted to work under somebody who was also doing writing as well?
yeah, and
Is that
also
what it was?
he was like one of the top restaurants
Yeah.
that people were talking about in Vancouver. Like my chef friends were talking about his food, and it was something totally different than anything I had done. Like everything I had done was very like farm to table type stuff, and I wanted to see like more tasting menu, fine dining, like Michelin stuff. So that
Yeah.
was like really good to see.
Was that your first Michelin star restaurant?
Yeah, yeah.
Like that quality of was that a shock or kind of like a yeah, a huge change for you?
Yeah, it was very formal, like very, very formal, and lots of rules and stuff. Like they wouldn't really let us like. It was like frowned upon to have coffee because it would ruin your palate, and like you had to sip
Oh,
water
okay.
like all the time during service to keep like cleansing your palate and stuff like that. It was about, like a lot of palate development, which I
Well,
hadn't seen before.
that's a more one of the better rules I've heard. Like
Yeah,
that's probably more about developing your taste as opposed to just conforming to a set of, nonsense rules. That's pretty cool.
yeah,
It's really smart. Yeah. I remember there was one story, I think it was one of the early Lucky Peaches, and I was thinking about this the other day when somebody folded the towels wrong.
yeah.
Or the way that I didn't like. And he said there was one moment where somebody some servers or something had folded the towels wrong, and instantly he looked at all of his cooks, and they were all instantly refolding all the towels to be like the same way that everybody folds the towels at Quay. Yeah, I think about that story a lot because
It's
it's
attention to
there's
detail, though. Like
exactly,
if you
yeah,
can't
that's what
fold
it
your
is.
towel correctly, are you gonna do the food correctly? Like if you can't take the tape off
Yeah,
your leader, are you gonna like put that extra care into like if you can't care about that, can you how much
yeah,
care can you have for everything? Like I
yeah,
definitely have that. I'm like wet rags must be folded into a rectangle, dry rags must be folded into a square, they must be folded at all times. Like it's just everyone has those rules, you know? Like
yeah. It's that attention to detail. Yeah,
yeah.
that story sticks with me a lot because folding towels is a lot. It's one of those details that's so important, but no one aside from even certain cooks
Yeah.
understand that that the towels should be folded a certain way, or and everybody's got their own thing. It's a very weird, nuanced thing
Yeah,
that no one really gets unless you're a cook.
absolutely.
It's strange. Um, yeah, where did you end up after doing that little bit of staging?
Um, I went back to Vancouver to see all my friends in the restaurant industry because the Olympics were in Vancouver and they needed like more cooks just to
Okay,
help out for the Olympics. So I was like, I'll come back and visit all y'all and cook with you. And then at that point, I decided that it was time to open my own restaurant, even though I was like pretty young. Like I hadn't, I don't know. I was like, I got to do this now. Like I felt like it was like now
how
or never.
how old were you when at that point?
I can't really remember, but I think like 27. Because
Jeez, that is young for to open a restaurant, but
yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
sometimes that's a good time to do it because you're still like,
Well,
uh,
ignorance is bliss,
as-
man. Like I just dove in. I didn't know the risks I was
that's
taking. I didn't know
yeah,
like what I was doing, and it was all super easy because I didn't know what I was doing. Like so I moved back to Saskatoon with Kyle, my partner, and started looking for a location. And we found this like old 100-year-old building, but it was a Chinese restaurant that was like a staple in Saskatoon for 50 years. Everyone knows it. It's called the Golden Dragon. It's like, but the building had been abandoned for 7 years, and it was in
okay,
an exact time capsule from like the 60s, 70s, and 80s.
that's cool.
Yeah, and it was like many different rooms, and it was like the decor was like very 60s, 70s, 80s, like golden crane wallpaper, like orange banquettes, like the
That's
kitchen
awesome.
lanterns. The lounge area was like Pepto Bismol pink and red with like very it
Yeah,
looked like, yeah, Twin Peaks kind of shit. Like it was just like
that's cool.
totally insane. And it looked like
Yeah,
the cooks just like dropped everything and walked out. Like it looked like they got raided. There was still like pans and stuff
yeah.
on the stove. The deep fryer was full of like a solidified like red jelly, like oil that had solidified. It was like
Holy
fucked up.
shit.
But
Yeah,
it was a turnkey operation. It came with all the tables, chairs, tongs, bowls, pots, like whatever. It was super dirty, filthy.
yeah. I was gonna say how much work did you have to do to get that thing back up and
We
running?
scrubbed for a month straight. And
Jesus. All
yeah,
right.
and it was just a turnkey operation. They made us pay like first and last month's rent, gave us the keys, and gave us everything in the building. It was like the
That's insane.
it was a
Yeah.
miracle. Like they should have sold us the business and then but they basically like rented us everything like as it was.
Okay.
But it was all like really cool old stuff. Like they don't make it like they used to. Like the mixing bowls were like heavy, like thick and like the
Yeah,
stock
they had
pot.
those heavy bottoms, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was cool. So we did that.
Did you keep it the decor?
Absolutely, it was
That's
yeah.
awesome.
We just cleaned it up and let it shine, and yeah, it was good. And so that restaurant, I was able to like accumulate all of the things I had learned at all the other restaurants. So we were like vegetable forward. We were doing whole animal butchery. We did like our own charcuterie program. We did a 5-course tasting menu with foraged ingredients like Quay. We did
Damn.
our own
How
compost program. We worked with a local farm.
how big was this restaurant? How many
It was
seats are we talking?
well, the building was as big as like an elementary school almost. It was crazy. We started with
Holy
only a
shit.
few rooms open, but we eventually built a patio too, so it could be over 100 seats at times.
Wow. What
But
made you guys decide that big of a restaurant for your first go?
we didn't want to. We were looking for
Oh,
something
it's just
tiny. Like we
yeah.
wanted something that just Kyle and I could run with like one server, but nothing was coming up. And then when we saw that, and because there was this place in Vancouver called the Narrows, and it was like this narrow hallway where just like two people worked it. And
Yeah.
then when we got to see that place, we were like, this is the opposite of the Narrows. This is like the Hollows. Like this is like a big hollow giant thing. So we ended up
Yeah.
calling it the Hollows.
That's awesome.
And then it was open and thriving for yeah, we had a horticulturist on staff that was growing all those seeds that I saved directly for the restaurant. So we had
Damn. So you dove in.
yeah, so
You
we had
went
like
from 0 to 1,000.
yeah, we
That's
did. I
insane.
finally got to do the restaurant that I wanted to do. I was like every restaurant that I've been at has done something really cool, but not everyone's doing all of the cool stuff that I want to do all at once.
Yeah.
So I wanted to put all of that together and do everything the way I wanted to do it with like so much meaning behind it. I basically run it like a homestead, like the apocalypse is coming type thing, like curing, preserving, fermenting, like seed saving, like composting, gardening, like everything, like hunting.
That's incredible.
Yeah, we all have our hunting licenses and our gun licenses. We're all crazy out here. It's
That's
Wild
wild.
West.
There's a few restaurants that are doing that. I think there's only a few restaurants that have their own farmers and things like that who are like
Mhm.
cultivating. That's wild. That's amazing.
Yeah, like they're on payroll. It's actually quite
Yeah.
expensive, but it also isn't because the quality of
Yeah.
product that
Yeah.
you get is unparalleled. So
Yeah. And it's specific to you. It's not
yeah,
like it's like you bought it from a purveyor or anything like that, right?
yeah, totally.
How many people did you have on staff? Like, I imagine that was a huge staff.
No, well, not at first. Like we had a lot of front of house near the end, and then the kitchen was probably near the end about 5 people. But we could run the
That's
line with three.
wow.
Yeah, the way that
That's
I set up
incredible.
the menu was really smart, and we could run it with 3 people. It was good.
What was mainly coming off of there? Was it mainly just meats and vegetables? Just keep it
Yeah, it was
really
like
simple.
there was like a small section that had like small appetizers, and then like all of our in-house charcuterie. We had like a charcuterie board and a cheese board, and then we had like probably like 5 or 6 mains that were some vegetarian, some meat, with the whole like rotating whole animal cuts and stuff like that.
Hmm.
And then like I don't know, 4 desserts and a huge cocktail list of all the odds and ends that we couldn't use in the kitchen. We turned into cocktail stuff.
That's cool.
Like it was
Yeah.
a zero waste restaurant. Like we got our dumpster picked up once a month, and it was like always empty. It just had like tin foils from like wine bottles and stuff in it because I would keep everything. The building was so big, I was able to be a huge hoarder. So like
Oh, no, yeah.
yeah,
So
I
you had
would
plenty of space.
yeah,
Yeah.
and I was just like
It's awesome.
anything that comes into the restaurant we've paid for, so nothing can leave because anything that's leaving is has possible value that we can
Yeah.
still extract from it. So I wouldn't let anything go in the garbage without me like looking at it. We get like triple uses out of some stuff, and like
That's awesome.
yeah, even like the Maker's Mark bottles with the red wax, I would make them like scrape all the red wax off before we recycled the bottle because I'm like I'm gonna melt that down and do a project with that.
Did you end up doing something with it?
Yeah, we put little like wax seals on our menus and stuff, or like I'd seal
Oh,
letters
that's
with it,
awesome.
and like we tanned hides there. Like we'd get Icelandic sheep from a local farm, and then I'd get the hides and I'd like tan the hides and decorate the restaurant with that. We make our
Holy
own
shit.
soap.
That's amazing.
Yeah, like basically this is the other thing. The whole animal butchery, we did our own compost program. Then we would use the entire animal, but then the bones we would turn into stock. But then
Mhm.
the inedible fat we would have left over. So I would render the fat and make soap, make hand soap for the bathrooms out of it. So we
That's
made our
amazing.
own soap in house as well. Yeah. And then the bones, we would actually burn them because we didn't know how to get rid of them. We didn't want to throw them in the garbage. We wanted them to go back into the garden. So we would like burn them to ash and then throw them in the
And then
garden.
use them as like, no, that's awesome. Probably super nutrient rich.
Yeah. Stunk real
Um,
bad. Stinky. Stinky bones. Very gross. Yeah. Lots of work.
uh,
Lots of work.
I was just gonna say, how was it running that restaurant? Because that sounds like an insane amount of work.
It was so much work, but it was work that I loved and I wanted to do. So it had so much meaning and it was just so amazing. And I was so young and so stupid that I like didn't realize that I was doing all this work. I just thought I was living my dream and I was, and it was like magical. Like we would forage crab apples and we'd have like the whole team front of house and back of house processing like crab apples to keep for us going all winter with them. We'd be like it was all everyone loved working there because it was like learning skills. Like it was like not just a
Yeah.
shitty serving job, and it was like you're learning like life skills, and so many crazy fucking things
Like you were
happened
saying,
there.
it's like surviving for the apocalypse. Like
Yeah,
you're learning life skills to survive a zombie apocalypse.
that's what we were
That's
doing there.
wild.
Yeah, it was crazy, and we got lots of crazy stories. Like lots of crazy shit happened.
That's wild.
Um,
Did you guys end up having some success? I mean, obviously you did have success, right?
yeah,
But
because of what we were doing, we put Saskatoon on the map. Really, like we were acknowledged by a lot of media because we had such a good story. Like, I guess that's my advice to anyone opening a restaurant is like you have to have a solid story behind what you're doing that you can tell that story because people want to hear it and then it spreads.
Yeah.
So yeah, like Tourism Sask got behind us real hard, and like everyone wanted to see the crazy old Chinese building and hear our story and eat our beautiful tasting menus with the foraged ingredients and the horticulture growing stuff for us, and like
Yeah.
so it was a huge success. Like we were open 9 years, and then the fire inspector came and inspected the building and said this building is fucked and you guys cannot continue. We have to. They're like we have to tear this down, and it was fucked. Like it was crazy. Like the floors were kind of
Yeah.
mushy. I was like I thought someone was gonna fall through the dish pit floor. I told them if they do that, they should just ride it down and go liquid. I was like, don't fight it. Just go loose. And,
Just let it happen.
yeah,
Yeah. That's yeah. So I was gonna ask, so for 9 years, did you keep the building like mainly the same? Did you
yeah.
make upgrades and things like that? Or
No, because it was
was it
all
mainly
it was all grandfathered in, so we couldn't like if we did one upgrade, it would like take it would be $1 million job to like it was like a house of
Yeah.
cards, you know.
Yeah.
And we didn't own the building, so it was stressing us out. So that's why we bought a restaurant just down the street that was for sale. We bought the entire building with all its contents, and we opened Primal Pasta, which is like our kind of flagship now. And
Yeah.
we made that thing be like way more streamlined and not as like homesteady. Um,
Everything you learned from
yeah,
from the hollows.
exactly.
Yeah, so what was that day like when they said, did they just randomly show up and start inspecting like a food inspector, or what was the impetus there?
They did. They stuck a freaking orange notice on our front door. They just stuck. It's
Okay.
like they
That's weird.
taped a notice that said like to be demolished, and we were like, what? And then we called the landlord, and the landlord was like, "Oh yeah, I've been getting letters about that, but I don't want to. I don't want to put money into the building. If you guys want to put money into the building and fix it, you can, because it's like your business." But we were like, "We don't have money, and like we don't want to put
Yeah.
millions into your building. Like, sell us the building." And he was like, "No," and like so we were just like, "Tear it." And then I was all excited because I was kind of tired of doing this for 9 years. I was like, "Tear it down! I'm so excited." On yeah, the Hollows Instagram still exists, and on the highlights, there's like a teardown reel showing the whole fucking building getting torn down. It's amazing.
That's wild.
I actually
Was
sat
that good?
outside while they tore it down in my car, and I had visitors coming by. We were all just drinking in the parking lot, watching it get torn down. It was fucking awesome.
That's yeah, I was gonna say, was that cathartic for you? Or was it like bittersweet?
No, it was fucking cool. I was like, because I was like, we
That's
can't
awesome.
do like we obviously can't do this forever, but like I don't want to go
Yeah.
out like go out quietly. I want to go out with a bang, and like I
Yeah.
was like I
Yeah.
will be
Big
the
bang.
last person standing in this building, and I was the last person standing in that building, and then boom, the whole thing's gone, and it's like now I can start
Yeah.
fresh somewhere else, you know?
That's awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah. What's in that spot now?
a
Did they
parking lot.
rebuild? Oh yeah,
Yeah,
shit, of course.
yeah.
That sucks. Do you miss that? Do you miss that grind
Of the having,
of the whole restaurant, of that whole restaurant program?
I do actually miss it. It took 2 years. It's been like 2 years or so since that place has been gone. It was a sweet 2 years though. Only having one restaurant, that was sweet. I was basically retired. All my good people from the one went to the other one. I just spent like 2 years in the hot tub chilling out. It was great. Um, but then I was like, "Hey, we got to open another restaurant," and so we opened Pop Wine Bar. That's across the street from Primal. We bought that entire building with all its contents as well. Um,
Mhm.
and then
Were these just opportunities that came up, or were you actively looking for
uh,
new spots?
opportunities that came up, and I'm always looking at real estate because I've realized that you can't make money in restaurants very much, so I make my money in real
No.
estate. Like
Yeah.
before I even went to Vancouver, I bought a house when I was like 18 years old before the boom in Saskatoon, and lived in the basement and rented out the upstairs. And then when I went to Vancouver, I just rented out the whole thing. My dad helped me manage the property, and when I got back, I took a mortgage on that to open the Hollows. I opened the Hollows for only $20,000 because everything was already
Wow.
there. All we
Because
had to
it was
do was
already, yeah, set.
buy, yeah, inventory, buy a
Yeah.
nice machine, that kind of thing. And then we opened Primal for only $20,000 as well. But I ended up
Was that
selling
also
that
kind of a
house.
turnkey restaurant as well?
It was, but it was like, yeah,
Wow.
it was.
Wow.
And I decorated it myself. I decorate the restaurants myself. So I sold that house and was able to buy the Primal building with the money. And then we remortgaged the Primal building last year and bought Pop. And then Pop is a wine bar because I'm trying to make the booze money because I want so and like there's a
That's
shortage of
where the
cooks,
money
right?
is.
Uh
Oh yeah.
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 So with Pop, we can do 200 people. Like it's only like a 60-seat restaurant, but we can do like 200 people, but it only takes two cooks to run the menu,
Hmm.
which is very smart because there's no cooks.
Yeah.
So I don't want
That's
to
the way to
like at
go.
Primal it
Yeah.
takes like 8 people to like run everything. But at Pop it only takes two, and it's been open a year, and we're slowly starting to like get back into that old Hollows magic. Like I'm started like this year I'm growing a massive garden. I'm gonna preserve it all. We're gonna like really launch back into I'm gonna pick and choose all the magic from the hollows that I enjoy and love and do it way more
Yeah.
streamlined and like bring it back to Pop, which is gonna be like a magical kind of
That's
full
great.
circle.
In the US, we have fucking terrible laws involving like fermentation and stuff like that. Does Canada have laws like that, or is it way more lenient? You can bring in fermentation
Oh yeah.
and you're okay to use it.
Like I said, it's the Wild West. We can do whatever we want out here. Like nobody
That's
knows
great.
what's going on in Saskatchewan. There's no regulations. It's fucking
That's
amazing.
awesome.
That's why I'm here.
That's great.
I'm here to
Yeah.
live free and do what I want. Ask for
Yeah.
forgiveness, not permission. Like
Yeah.
I'm a big rule breaker, and that is also the reason that I own the buildings and don't have any investors. Like I said, is because
Yeah.
I hate being told what to do. I like to be in full control of my whole situation. And
Yeah.
yeah, I break rules as much as possible, which is sometimes good, sometimes bad.
Yeah. That's just the nature of restaurants, I think. And being a chef. Yeah. Yeah. How did the pandemic hit you guys?
It was fine. Like
Were you already done with the hollows at that point,
the
and then
hollows was
opening?
still there, but it was scheduled to be torn down. So we just took everybody and we ran like a grocery store out of it for a bit, which was super cool for the
Okay.
community because there was like a bunch of shortages, but we had all this access. Since we've been apocalypse preparing, we were fully prepared, and we were bringing in like different stuff from our local farmers that was like on the grocery store shelves that people couldn't get, like just like ground beef
Yeah.
and stuff like that. But like, so we set up a beautiful grocery store in there, and we convinced like Skip the Dishes to deliver groceries to people, which was really cool.
Uh-huh.
But then we were
That's
like,
cool.
"Fuck this! Let's all just go to Primal and party." So we were like, "This place is getting torn down, abandoned ship." So we like all went to Primal, kept our core staff on. We actually called our staff, like each person was like, "Do you want to stay on, or do you want to do you want to stay home? Like, are you scared? What do you want to do?" And it worked out perfect. Like half the staff wanted to stay, half the staff didn't want to work. So we just kept a core staff, and we rocked like the most incredible takeout program of all fucking time. And we actually broke sales records in the pandemic. It was fucking awesome. It was so fun.
That's awesome. So you guys kind of rode through it. That's awesome.
Yeah, it was good.
That's amazing.
It was easy peasy. Like, yeah, we were just really creative and kept it kept really fluid and just kept doing whatever we could do.
That's awesome. So is the problem you've been having with cooks, did you notice that like after the pandemic? Has that just been a recent development for you guys?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
after after the pandemic and then opening Pop. Yeah, two restaurants is definitely harder than one restaurant for sure. Like it is. Like I'm running
Yeah.
my ass off
I
again there
bet.
too. But yeah, it's weird. I keep an eye on the Canadian government stats all the time, and like the unemployment rate is at
Mhm.
an all-time low. There's like
Yeah.
everybody who can work is working. There's just not enough people to cover the jobs. Like it's fucking
It's true.
crazy.
Yeah.
So I'm training a bunch of kids right now. I'm just like training any children that I can find that can work. Like like sixteen to
That's pretty good.
18-year-olds.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
you.
Do you find that there are less of those kids that want to work in kitchens,
Yeah,
or is it the
probably,
same
yeah.
amount?
Probably.
Yeah.
I think it's gonna come back full swing. I don't know. And like we're slowly getting there. Like and the good
Mhm.
thing about the kids when you train them, they stay for a really long time because they get into it, which is good.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. Here in Austin, there's definitely a saturation of restaurants. Is that a problem you guys are having, or is it mainly just a lack of people who want to work?
There's a lot of restaurants, but a lot are closing and opening all the time. Like it's
Yeah.
kind of crazy. There's only like a few restaurants that are like top tier local restaurants, and then there's a bunch of chain
Yeah,
restaurants.
of course. Yeah.
But oh yeah, also with the war in Ukraine, a ton of the Ukrainian refugees are in Saskatchewan and Saskatoon. So
Oh,
I've
okay.
I've been hiring some Ukrainian refugees, and it's been pretty sweet.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I
That's
I
great.
have I have my poor chef de cuisine, man. I just went on this like website or Facebook page for like Ukrainian
Hmm.
refugees and was like looking for cooks and chefs. No resume, no English necessary. Like I'm that desperate. And
Yeah.
so my poor chef de cuisine's like got this one cook who's just so amazing, doesn't speak English, but she's like actually learning English like quite rapidly. But he's
That's
basically like
great.
teaching her English as well as cooking. But
That's
she's a so but now that we have her,
damn.
we got some more people coming, and she can translate for them, and it's like working out really well.
That's awesome. It sounds like, yeah, you're rebuilding into something that's totally, totally new, building for the
Yeah,
long
well, you
haul.
gotta just keep being fresh. Yeah, keep
Yeah.
where there's a will, there's a way, and if there's a problem, there's always some sort of solution. So that's what I that's how I'm doing it.
Yeah. So what's next for you guys? Do you feel like are you just on kind of autopilot right now, just let it run, or you guys got plans for the future?
Um, that's a weird one. People have been asking me that, like, what's next, and it's like for sure. We've only had pop for a year, and we are we're pretty much like barely hanging on to our butts right now, man. Like it's hard.
Oh,
Like
damn.
shit's
Yeah.
real hard. Like we're just
Do you mean financially or just in terms of like the struggle of owning a business, like and the pressures? Is
just
that what you
all
mean?
of it. Like
All of
just
it? Yeah.
everything. Like recovering from the startup costs of pop, which was our biggest. We had to like build an entire bar and like plumb it in and everything, and like we've never done anything like that. We've always just like shined up
Yeah.
whatever is there. So that was like way, and then the construction costs were like so inflated because of the pandemic and everything. So it was
Yeah.
a tough time
Everybody's
to
building and
open.
stuff.
Yeah, but
Was there a cost of buying all of the wine as well? Like I've never heard the background of that, like buying a bulk of wine at once.
yeah, we have like fifty
Yeah.
thousand dollars in inventory right now in just wine. Like
Jesus, that's
it's fucked,
crazy. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it snuck up on me. And also like with the liquor laws in Saskatchewan, it's just super expensive to buy anything. But we have wine allocations that like are sold out in New York and stuff. Like this wine bar, we're really killing it. Like we have a really, really good wine list.
That's awesome.
But yeah, everything's like I have a feeling that everything is gonna like level out, and we're just gonna like become super profitable, but it's gonna take some time. And so we're just like waiting for that. And I want to be rich. Like I want to get rich in this business. So like I hope that it
Yeah.
works
It's a
out. I'm also looking at some co-packing stuff. Like I have some product
what is
lines that I do on a very small scale, so I want to
okay.
try and get those on a large scale and get some passive income through that.
Okay. Yeah, you mean like pickles and
Yeah,
or like
like I got
yeah, that kind of
sauces
thing.
and teas, and maybe I'll do some misos or something.
Yeah.
Saskatchewan
That
grain.
I think that's where kind of the support and money comes in because a buddy of mine, Andy Jack, who does fermentation and stuff on Instagram, he has a couple of spice lines and things like
Cool.
that, like umami salt. And he was talking about that when I talked to him. He's like, if you can get this stuff up and running in the background, then just do it. Like you
Yeah,
just have it passive income pretty much.
yeah,
Yeah, I think that's kind of where things are going. Andy Ricker for a while from Pok Pok was doing that, and they just shut the store down. But I thought that was brilliant. He
yeah,
was selling like vinegars and very unique Thai products that you couldn't get anywhere else, Thai charcoal, and
yeah.
I was like, that's a really smart idea that nobody really is taking up. That's a smart
Yeah.
direction.
I've got some wild forage tea blends that I sell. They're like really selling
That's
really
cool.
well. Yeah. My brand is called Be Magic. I really like it.
Be magic.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think it's
Do
gonna
you have a store up and running?
I just sell it out of the restaurants. There's a market that's
Oh,
next door
okay.
to Pop, so I sell it out of that I sell it out of a ton of different markets and stores in Saskatoon.
Okay, but you're trying to go a little bit
I want to go
more
big. Yeah.
global,
Yeah.
go global with it. Yeah,
Yeah. I don't really
that's
know
awesome.
how, but that's like kind of what my future that's like the future, I
That's the
think.
dream.
Yeah. Also, just
Okay.
improving upon my buildings that I have. Like, I'd love to do like a rooftop garden, rooftop patio. Like, I'd love to build a freaking greenhouse on top of one of the buildings and have a dining room inside a big glass greenhouse. Like, come full circle with that, like Amsterdam
Like
shit.
the glass. Yeah.
Yeah, I have like
That's awesome.
big dreams, but no money. So we'll see. And
No
I don't
money
have
to make it
investors. So
happen.
that's the other problem.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to talk. Yeah, this is an amazing conversation. I really appreciate it. Maybe someday I'll get up to Saskatoon. I still haven't been up to Canada, but I'm trying to make it up to eat at Joe Beef and a couple other places. So maybe I'll get up there someday.
I love those Joe Beef guys. Yeah, you come on up and you're always welcome. We'll host you.
Oh, that'd be great. Thank you so much, Chef. I really appreciate it. Yeah, thank you so much for your time. Appreciate
Awesome.
it.
Thanks, Jeff.
Have a good day.
Bye.